You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
With amateurs in charge and experts purged, Trump has no way out, based on an article by Adam Lynch. Trump chose the war, then pretended it had a timeline. The decision was his. The central fact here is not confusion. It is authorship. Trump unilaterally committed the United States to war with Iran, then kept changing the story about what victory would look like and when it would arrive. The reporting makes clear that the war exists because he chose it, not because events forced his hand. That matters because the usual political fog is already forming around the edges of the crisis. The problem is not that the conflict became messy in some abstract, weather-like way. The problem is that one man with institutional power made a reckless decision, claimed control he did not have, and then treated the consequences as if they were an annoying communications issue. Weak strategy, heavy consequences. Shepp's description of a war launched with no clear theory of victory or exit strategy is the real indictment. That is not a small planning error. It is the governing style of a president who confuses dominance with strategy and improvisation with command. The result is predictable escalation, public backlash, and no credible end state. Trump's original justifications have already evaporated, replaced by whatever pretext is useful this week. That is how imperial drift works. The rationale changes because the commitment cannot be admitted as a mistake. The misdirection is the point. This story can be misread as a tale of Trump's stupidity. That is too easy. Stupidity explains almost nothing in a system built to let one reckless executive convert impulse into state violence. The more useful question is who empowered him, who translated his fantasies into policy, and who is now helping sell the consequences as merely unfortunate. The article points to a degraded national security apparatus, amateur negotiators, a politicized diplomatic corps, purged expertise, and a Pentagon shaped by right-wing media theatrics. That is not accidental decline. It is deliberate institutional mutilation. When expertise is treated as the enemy, blunder becomes policy and policy becomes a loyalty test. The state was hollowed before the war began. Trump did not create this capacity vacuum alone, but he is using it exactly as designed. A hollowed-out State Department, sidelined Iran specialists, and a military bureaucracy fed on ideology rather than competence make it easier for a president to wage a war without meaningful internal resistance. So when the article notes that Trump is surrounded by people who do not understand Iran and do not trust Iran's counterparts, that is not merely a staffing problem. It is the shape of authoritarian governance, loyalty over competence, spectacle over deliberation, and force over diplomacy because force is easier to command from the top. The people he sacrifices are the wrong ones. The costs are already being pushed outward. Voters pay in their wallets. Soldiers are treated as objects for macho pseudoscience, with testosterone tests offered as policy theater. Iranian civilians, American service members, and ordinary households all absorb the damage while the people who made the decisions preserve the fiction of control. That distribution of pain is the point of militarized executive power. It concentrates authority at the top and disperses the bill everywhere else. Trump gets to perform strength. Everyone else gets the war. The real lesson, the larger pattern, is not that Trump is uniquely unqualified, though he is. It is that American institutions remain vulnerable to a president who can dismantle expertise, sideline diplomacy, and start a war without a persuasive plan and still force the country to live inside his delusions. This is not our cautionary tale about one man's overconfidence. It is a case study in how personal rule, institutional decay, and permanent war reinforce each other. When the state is built to obey rather than to resist, the question is never whether a reckless president will create a debacle. It is how quickly everyone else will be made to pay for it. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AltaNet for today's article. With it automated voice of Bryce. Thanks for listening.